with National Book Lovers Day coming up. Maybe you've been spending time on the hammock this summer enjoying your favorite book in the summer sun. We also enjoy different topics to read about, but have you ever wondered about the story of the book itself as you hold it in your hand? Well, here to share more about what makes a book is celebrity historian Raffi Andonian. Hey, Raffi.
Hey there, you're talking about magnet fishing. I feel like I go fishing for books all the time. Or like those bears earlier, like looking through, rummaging through the piles for books.
Yeah.
One of the funnest things to do is to go to, like a discard pile at an old library and they're just giving books away, or to give them for $1 or less, and to dig through. You can find some real treasures in there if you're a bear about it and searching through.
Yeah, I love that.
How cool.
Yeah. Well, I kind of set this up, but what actually makes a book? Seems like a very basic question, but I know you'll have the answer.
There's three main components: binding, paper, and pigment. Those are the
Okay.
three main components. Now, I want you to think of a book when, the origin of books, if you will, which go back thousands of years, but really the kinds of books we recognize in Europe, especially in the Middle Ages, represent a global trade of sorts. They're bringing some of those materials from East Asia. They're bringing materials from North Africa. And it represents trade policy in some ways, economics, materials available, status, and what you want to put into it. And all those pieces would show you that. For example, the binding, the reason you need the binding is because you would actually have to find a book binder, because a book back then would come as a leaflet, like a stack of papers. So you got to find a book binder to put that thing together.
Interesting, yeah.
So what kind of effort you're going to put into the book binder is based on how much money you have and what purpose is. Is it a religious text or not? Binding was made of things like goat skin, sheep skin, calf skin. You name it, all kinds of different things. Even wood blocks you would see. You're seeing mother of pearl there as a binding there.
Beautiful.
That's actually really cool. All kinds of different materials. Now, some of the softer materials, like what you're seeing there, allow you to kind of engrave on them a little bit more. Now, what you're seeing on there on the screen is a more kind of commoner type binding, because it had kind of this slapstick stuff put together. That'd be more common in the Americas.
Okay.
So it just depends on what's available, the resources, and what's going on. Now, what you're seeing on screen there is materials for paper. You saw flax. You're seeing now elements for silk. So paper, that other component we're talking about.
Sure, yeah.
Silk would be used, flax would be used. You know what flax would be used for? What we call rag paper. So you literally take the fibers out of it and beat the fabric until it becomes a rag paper. And those rag paper newspapers, even from hundreds of years ago, actually are like in better shape from hundreds of years ago than last week's newspaper, because they're so powerful in how they're used. Now, here's something else that's really cool about paper that you won't believe. The thing about paper is they would sometimes actually carve it into wood, so you'd have finely carved wood paper, and they would actually go to wasp nests at times and get the wood pulp, because a wasp pulls a wood pulp out of the wood to create its nest. That's what later inspired using wood pulp in paper that we use to this day, believe it or not.
It makes you wonder who discovered this. Like, how was this
what was
found
the
out?
process?
I want to know the
it's like
first
this
time.
crazy process, right? In the last part to a book, we talked about binding, we talked about paper.
Yeah.
How about pigment? They can use all kinds of inks, okay? Not just plant oils that you might expect. We're talking about arsenic, graphite, mercury even, so sometimes toxic. Yeah, it's not always fun. Lead, of course. But also, they would use the cochineal beetle. You might have seen this sometimes. You go to some historic areas. It's the shell of a beetle. Very hard to find. It was from the Americas, considered a luxury product. That's why you see a lot of royalty later back in Europe, wearing purple, pink, or red, incorporating that red, because it kind of means such a hard to find and expensive product.
Yeah.
And how about gold being used as a pigment or a leaflet? In the Americas, there are accounts, for example, of using gold that was 1/250,000th of an inch thick. Imagine working with that. So the true craftsman that you're doing. Now, gold will be used for reserved for like royalty, nobles, the Quran, those kinds of texts. But that's the kind of craft and skills that you'd have to take to be applying to that. So it gives you an idea of what all went into a book. So when you say what is a book, that gives you an idea of what is actually in a book.
That's it, man.
So
fascinating. Raffi, thanks as always for joining us.
Of course,
It
and
makes
that's
me
the book, of course, real quick.
Appreciate.
You do appreciate it, and that's using a printing press. A lot of books back then were handwritten.
Right.
The printing press in the 15th century changes everything, allows for newspapers, and that's what actually enables for mass learning and mass literacy for the past 500 years. That was harder to do before, because the metal type, to be able to mass produce to the printing press, first one of which was in Mexico City in the Americas. Of course, Europe had it before that, and then eventually spreads to the U.S., into St. Louis, and beyond to the west, into New Mexico, Santa Fe, and to California.
That's awesome. Thanks for giving us some history. We always appreciate it. Go find yourself a book and appreciate it even more, right, everybody? Yeah. Stick around. We got more Good Day in WA coming up right after this. Do you think I can finish this in the break? I don't know.
Yeah, sure. Give it a try.
It's pretty thick. Oh, it's got a lot of pictures. So.